Everyone is talking about a cultural vibe shift that was started by Trump's recent victory, all the way leading up to his inauguration. And even well before that, I was hearing about a vibe shift going throughout 2024. And although for the past 8 years, Hollywood has been this one sacred place that will not associate with Donald Trump, rumor has it that they might have to relent. They have no other choice because their business is struggling so much. They need to become more friendly to Trump so that he can give them opportunities.
Yep. David Zaslav was probably the first person to really, it felt like to me, was the first person who kind of got on board, and early on, like well before, early on in the election cycle, me and you were like, I thought Kamala was, I thought she was going to win. I did. And David
I at least thought it was a coin toss.
And David Zaslav said, look, he'd be great for business. He's business friendly. He would be great for us. And that was considered controversial at the time.
Yes.
I have seen a lot of people, a lot of channels point out that David Zaslav is kind of the orange man bad of Hollywood executives. They really dislike him. Like, they really dislike him.
We have a 20 from Jose Quintana. From sad and pathetic to truly demonic and horrific, I hope neither of these women go to their next level. They could. These males participating, each and every one a predator, each and every one. Well, I mean, I don't think that what they did to her is predatory, but they're probably more likely than the rest of the population to be predatory in other situations. But Variety published this piece titled, "Hollywood is now ready to work with Trump. You didn't hear Biden talking about how to help us." And that's true. Throughout Biden's presidency, there were the strikes and COVID regulations.
They weren't even getting any help from Newsom until very, very recently, because once the strikes happened and everything, they just started pumping out work overseas. They moved everything to Canada, or they moved it to India, and they weren't producing here in America. And Gavin Newsom finally had to add a whole bunch of tax credits back on, and I don't even think those have gone into effect yet. So they're not really getting help from anyone, and the average everyday person doesn't have any love lost for them. It's not like anybody here is going to cry because Hollywood isn't getting the tax breaks they need, or because the government doesn't want to help them.
And for the same reason, tech CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg are cozying up to Trump because it's good for big tech's business opportunities.
Yep.
In this article, they start off by talking about the TikTok party. I went to the TikTok party. I don't know if it was really my kind of party, but I'm glad that I got to go.
What is your type of party? I'm just curious.
One where you can hear yourself talk and you can hear the other person talk.
Okay. Couldn't do that there?
Could not do that at the TikTok party. It was sort of like this.
Okay.
You know?
You're like, oh, how's it
like
going?
1,000 times louder.
So what do you think of the election?
Thank you.
Okay.
They say the night before Donald Trump returned to the White House, one of the splashiest inauguration week bashes was kicking off at DC hotspot Saks Restaurant and Lounge. Waka Flocka Flame performed, while conservative VIPs Ben Shapiro, Terrence K. Williams, and Matt Walsh were honored with a crowd of 600 partied until the wee hours.
Was that it, Mary? Did you party until the wee hours? Were the hours wee?
I think I left before what you would consider the wee hours.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, you could say I was partying. While the guest list was apropos for a Trump 2.0 celebration, some might be shocked by who sponsored and shelled out $75,000 for the event. None other than TikTok, which signed to host in November. And it was purely coincidental that the countdown to TikTok's shutdown fell on the same exact day that this party was taking place. CJ Pearson, who we've had on the show before, was the one who organized the event, and he said it kind of was happenstance that the party ended up being the same day they were scheduled to go dark. Obviously, Trump saved the platform. It could have been a funeral, but instead it was a very jubilant celebration. So people were not just celebrating Trump's win, they were celebrating TikTok's win because Trump wanted to be the savior of the platform.
As they perceive also it's the cultural shift that's going on.
Right. Tech oligarchs like Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Tim Cook were atop the guest list for another 4 years of Trump, having proven their fealty at the inauguration. Many in show business are wondering just how close Hollywood will cozy up to Trump in this new era. Talent who pledged early support have been put through social media ringer. Carrie Underwood was photoshopped into a KKK robe by an ex-user after confirming she would perform at the inauguration. And then Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and Jon Voight were mocked and eye-rolled by show business insiders when Trump announced this month they would be his envoys to Hollywood. I don't know. I still don't know actually what that role means for them.
Say what you want, but Stallone and Gibson are still working plenty and involved plenty. Mm-hmm. So,
but this is not ideological. This is all about money. For some, a return to 2020 before COVID, before strikes and devastating wildfires crippled Hollywood's limping economy would be welcome, even if it meant enduring Trump's drive-by attacks on the industry. Members of the industry's most left-wing contingent, the unions, are privately expressing hope that the president's planned tariffs on imports may cover runaway production, thus creating a greater incentive to film in hubs like Los Angeles and Atlanta.
Oh, so they like the tariffs when they help them.
So they're willing to tolerate Trump and all of his Trumpness if it means that he's going to regulate in their favor and bring filming back into the U.S.
It's actually how you should look at it. Like, you should not look at it as a politician as somebody to admire or despise. You should look at it as somebody who can hopefully do something for you, the citizenry.
Yes, but that's another reason we should be cautioned against thinking people like Mark Zuckerberg or anyone in show business suddenly woke up one day and had a change of heart about Trump and now they love him and they got red-pilled. That is not what happened. No. They just have a self-serving incentive to cozy up to him and his administration based on policies, and they're going to lobby for their interests. One prolific film producer says he doesn't care for Trump's politics, but he admits it's refreshing to hear the office of the president focus on how we can get the movie business back on track and back in Los Angeles. He complained, "We had to shoot the whole thing," his recent film, "in Bulgaria because it cost half as much. I had to sleep in a stinky hotel and not the house I worked my entire life to buy."
I mean, I always
And you didn't hear Biden talking about how to help us.
I always assume that any movie that's being filmed in places like that is actually funded by the Russian mob. Like, I just imagine there's some type of Russian mob that is then funneling money through the SVR. I don't imagine any of that is actually like legal. Not legal, but not illegal, but
you suspect foul play.
I suspect hinkiness.
Well, a film producer's got to do what he's got to do, okay? They also mentioned that obviously Jeff Bezos donated to Trump's inaugural fund, and Bob Iger paid Trump a visit at Mar-a-Lago, probably to advocate for his interests, given that a huge part of their business model resides in Florida.
Yeah, well, and also Bob Iger's entire business model for Disney has been acquisition. It's not about building Disney up from the ground. It's about buying other properties and buying other companies and then making them Disney brands. And to do that, you have to have regulatory committees that are on your side and are going to let those sales go through.
They also speculate here that Jeff Bezos himself had to sign off and approve Amazon's budget for the documentary they're producing about Melania Trump, which is going to be directed by Brett Ratner after his cancellation.
He's like, "Look, you can have as much money as you want, but my girlfriend gets to dress like a whore while at your inauguration."
When is the Lauren Sanchez doc going to come out?
That's what I want to see.
I want to know her life story and how she ended up in this situation. Yep. Another chief executive at a media conglomerate, who also remained unnamed, says that Hollywood has lost its nerve. Like, they've been pushed to the breaking point, so they can't pretend to be too virtuous anymore to associate with Trump.
It's easy to have nerve when you have cash reserves and the ability to take a stand.
They got humble.
And then limp back to your corner. But when you don't have the cash reserves, when you don't have the ability to stand on business, as they say, it's a lot harder. Sorry.
We have another 20 from Dreamcast Night. So SoundCloud strippers having a beef? Well, that's not a thing I would have thought to have seen in my life.
SoundCloud strippers.
Apropos
awesome.
of SoundCloud beef, what will lead to shots, the Drake beef or the hoe off in England? Hopefully neither.
We would hope neither.
Yeah. But Jeff Bezos, who celebrated Joe Biden's victory over Trump in 2020, saying unity, empathy, and decency are not characteristics of a bygone era.
See, notice how we're not
is the one who's now getting friendly, and he's now an unlikely bedfellow with Trump because he has to be.
And the thing is when they get involved with Trump, they have to talk policy because they can't talk about the social implications, because the social implications don't benefit them in the way that they're framed by the media. So it's all about the business side of it. But it should be that way no matter who's in charge. Just because one party's in charge doesn't mean that you should be advocating for, what was it, decency? What did he say?
Decency, unity, and empathy.
That ain't got shit to do with public policy. Not really.
It ain't got shit to do with the bottom line at Amazon.
So, they could have done that with Biden as well. He just would have had to have been focused on the business side of things, but he wasn't. So if that means that they have to cozy up to the dictator, then I guess they do.
I think Hollywood executives got real pissed that they had been pledging their loyalty to Democrats for their entire existence and then got nothing out of it. They had nothing to show for it at the end of the day.
The point that I've always made from the beginning, I said, look, the creatives may be as loony as you may ever see, and they may be as far left as you'd ever see. People with money are at least going to be somewhere closer to the middle and have a more pragmatic approach to how things are made. And the reason why Hollywood had a golden age was because the people with the purse strings were able to rein in the people with the creatives who were able to create great art while also being kind of gently reminded that you have to speak to a general audience. And that was the people with the purse strings that did that, right? They're the ones who say, look, we can't just make a movie for the 5 people that understand this topic. We have to make a movie that applies to everybody, that can at least appeal to everybody. And that's what they need to do. And that's what they need to get back to.
This vibe shift is taking place with people that you haven't heard of for the most part. The vibe shift is taking place with people behind the cameras rather than in front of them, and they made sure to recognize it's unlikely that the number of actors who publicly support the incoming president will expand beyond the small cadre that includes Zachary Levi, Rob Schneider, Roseanne Barr, among others. There aren't going to be many famous celebrity actors or actresses coming out to support Trump. That's because this is on the business side, and those are the talent. They don't have to think about the money side of things, which is why they make all of these statements about, we made this movie for a good cause, so you should go see it because it's for a good cause, or it represents this group of people, that this minority group I belong to, or it's shifting people's norms and traditions, and we're subverting your expectations.
It will always infuriate me the way that they talk about these things, because they never approach it from the point. It's like, look, you can make all of the art you want that speaks to a small group, and people will be okay with that. Did you fund it yourself? Did you make it on your own? You cannot be mad at an executive or an audience who says, you didn't pay for this. You didn't fund it. You cannot speak to such a small group of people. That doesn't make any sense. And they go back and forth, and that's kind of the dance that creatives and executives do time and time again. And there is certainly a middle ground to be had. Look, I think that when the studios get overly involved, bad things happen as well. DC Studios is 110% proof that things go wrong when executives exert too much control. So it's about finding a healthy middle ground, and you can make magic out of that. It's just that it's more annoying when I hear the actors complain than when I hear the executives complain.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's
we
just
have
the way I
not
see
heard
it.
the end of it yet.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.